Serious people that have had sex with someone with a disability. What was different about the experience? Interesting noises from a deaf girl. Especially interesting when I wasn't aware of her deafness. We had communicated the whole night in the club via text on her phone. Then her being a different nationality and me being in a different country. I'd assumed it to be a language barrier thing when she kept the phone texting up on the walk back to my room. I was quite drunk, which probably didn't help realizing sooner, but it was an instant realization once the noises began. I had sex with a man missing his left arm and shoulder. He was really good at spooning. Would spoon again. Had sex with a mute woman. Honestly wasn't that different, still lots of moaning. But didn't at all notice during the act. Switching positions was still normal too since we both gestured with our bodies. My partner was born without a femur in one of his legs. Affects sex 0% from my perspective. He's expressed before that he's disappointed he can never hold a girl up against a wall and have sex while holding her. I can't think of a more uncomfortable position though and have no desire to try it. So I'm secretly glad that this isn't a possibility. I can attest. It's more difficult than you'd think. Kinda fun. But mostly just to giggle and keep going. If you're going really crazy you might keep it up for just a minute or two and the novelty wears off. Dated a girl with MS in the past. She walked with a limp and had some motor control issues, but the sex was pretty normal. She struggled being on top, but she gave her all. That's the thing about disabled people. The ones that really make it in life have god levels of enthusiasm for the whole deal on account of the joy of triumph over massive strife. It's like this kind of joy that needs a critical mass of suffering to understand and experience. But when you do, it must be goddamn existential awakening, judging by the disabled people I've known. They always make me feel like an entitled, jaded, unenlightened piece of shit because they've been so utterly screwed by the universe but so utterly seem to be content to exist in it. The profoundly deaf make interesting sex noises. That is all. The deaf make interesting noises, period. Lived next to a deaf couple, both deaf from birth. IIRC, and they were by far the noisiest neighbors I have ever had. Sweet people, but I do not think they realize they are making noise most of the time. Sex. Fighting. Anything. Tons and tons of unconscious noise. Mostly grunts, groans, moans, things of that nature. I have cerebral palsy. Am wheelchair bound about 80% of the time and have such bad muscle spasms and tremors during high activity like sex that I'm prone to collapse or instant exhaustion. It's made for awkward encounters my whole life. However, it also led to me earning the nickname, the human vibrator, and though encounters were awkward, I have never had an experience where they didn't orgasm. Between this and the free parking, I'd say I'm doing alright in life. I had sex with a woman who had lost most of her leg to cancer. They had even removed a piece of her hip. The strangest thing was that she really only had one ass cheek. I mean, she had two. But one was really small and the other was quite large. So it was like she only had one. Super sweet girl. I have Tourette's and sometimes I swear or slap myself in the chest. He says it doesn't change anything. I had a partner who had Tourette's. He had little tics. Nothing verbal. He would snap or give a little shake when cuddling. It was cute to me. Was with a girl with a leg amputated above the knee. It was amazing. And the cuddling after was second to none. If you don't mind my asking what was different about it? I work with a girl who has an above the knee amputation and I think we both like each other, but I'm not sure. Off and on dated a blind gal in college. Sex was lots of fun but had to make sure her dog was in the room but unable to reach assist. Without being too explicit, the dog took a few times to get used to her orgasm without being distressed. And we had to stick to fun in the bed or he would be a tripping hazard. I also took a few elbows to the nose as we adjusted in the bed before we learned to tuck a bit more. And that it made sense for her to pretty much keep a hand on the back my neck forearm so she could kiss me when she wanted to rather than just me having that luxury. Best advice I can say is after you get the nervous first time out of the way, spend a good long time just establishing touch intimacy so your blind partner can know their way around you. That and gain consent for each new area touching. BC body language is so critical in avoiding surprises. She also loved sensory play with ice cubes. That's everything I can think of. We didn't work out BC. She couldn't see herself with me in the long run, but mostly BC I wanted to travel and move, and she had some understandable anxiety about that, which wasn't a priority for her. I told her using a pun to break it off was the best way to get bad news. Hooked up with a blind guy a few years ago. Honestly, some of the best sex of my life. Intimate as hell. He was a huge cuddler. And we actually talked a whole lot. Even though it was a hookup, we became friends after because of how much we just chatted lol. I'm married to a man with a Barbie butt. But seriously, my husband has Crohn's disease and had surgery to remove his large intestine and place an ostomy bag a month before we met. 3 years ago he had his anus removed and his butthole sewn shut. Hence the smooth Barbie butt. Sex is completely normal and he's an excellent lover. The ostomy bag doesn't really get in the way, and we've only had 2 accidents in the 5 years we've been together. It wasn't the end of the world either. He's incredibly attentive, caring, and very respectful. The biggest difference was he had a horrible self-image sexually due to closed-minded people he had been with before. A little open-mindedness can go a long way. You might end up with your soulmate who can actually listen to what your body is saying at the right moment. Repeatedly. I dated a guy with spina bifida for a few years. Because he had decreased sensation in his genitals. He discovered masturbation with his nipples in his youth. That was incorporated into almost everything we did. He was also very easily turned on by dirty talk and could orgasm easily in the process of eating pussy. I was lucky. One of the downsides was he had a neurogenic bladder and was an intermittent cath user. So he had a constant UTI. The bacteria was just colonized all over in there. Even with condoms. I also had UTIs all the time. A couple of years back I met a lady that was missing a lower leg and had a deformed arm. Took her to my place and went to bed. Not really anything unusual about it at all up until this point. In the middle of the night I need to go to the bathroom. So I step out of the bed and onto her leg. Her prosthetic leg that she had taken off and placed under the bed. I look down and see a foot. This is unusual to me because it has never happened before, and I legit, in my drunken train of thought there was a dead body under the bed. It scared the crap out of me. It took me half a minute to realize it was hers. I dated an absolutely gorgeous one-armed woman for a few weeks. Sex was great. Couldn't do doggy for obvious reasons. She broke it off with me because I was too immature for her. Which I totally was at that time of my life. She ended up marrying one of my good buds and they have a son together. Very happy for both of them. Hooked up with a blind chick one time. She was very handsy and less judgmental. It was a positive experience. With a fear of sounding judgmental. How did you end up meeting and eventually hooking up with a blind person? I've never seen a blind person on any bars or dating apps. And I can't imagine them interacting much romantically with strangers in public. My partner is a bilateral above-knee amputee. And doesn't wear prosthetics. We can't do it from behind. But he's extremely flexible. Lack of muscles and tendons do this. We found some positions that work better for us and others that really don't. For 2 years I dated a girl with ovarian cancer. Not a disability actually, but a condition. Those who don't know, it means she was infertile. I knew this before we started dating. So every time we made love, I liked to keep it pure. In her memory, she would cry afterwards. I tried to make her feel that it was okay. But it's really hard even for a strong human being like her. In the morning she acted like all was fine, but I knew how much she was still hurting. Suddenly her situation started deteriorating. She developed a lot of other complications. On a routine visit, the doctor told us that she had only 4 months left. That's when I cried. And she told me it was okay. Then she asked me to break up. She said she didn't want me to go through all that would follow. She moved out and started living with her parents. I can proudly say that she was the stronger person BWN is. She made the decisions in our relationship. So I couldn't oppose her. She lived for 6 more months. I was hoping that somehow she might make it. But one morning her dad called me to say that she had passed away in her sleep. Jane, wherever you are, you'll be my beacon forever. I had sex with someone who had spina bifida and was wheelchair bound. It was pretty normal other than trying to avoid his urostomy bag as I didn't want to accidentally disconnect it and cause a leak. He could transfer himself in and out of bed with ease and had incredible upper body strength, so he tossed me around a bit. We had intercourse, but he couldn't ejaculate, and although he could maintain an erection, he couldn't feel it fully. His legs were flaccid, which is typical in someone who doesn't walk. Since he had limited sensation, I was worried at first I would hurt him by leaning on him wrong or bending him in a way that legs don't go. But we managed fine. I am a nurse. Not his nurse. But a nurse just the same. I am not sure if that helped with my comfort level of his deformities or not. Super cool dude. Very giving lover. And was really great at phone online sex. The most amazing imagination of anyone I have ever fucked.